Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. We're going to get started here in about a minute. We'll just give some people time to funnel in and get settled. I hope you're having a great day. Wonderful weekend ahead of us. We'll just give people another 30 seconds or so, and then I will get started on today's webinar. Okay, let's get started. Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar, Capturing the Next Wave, Trends from JP Morgan's 2025 Conference to Drive Biopharma Solutions and Medtech Growth. My name is Dario Priolo, and I will be your speaker for the next 30 minutes or so. Before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping items. First of all, I use a system called StreamYard to stream these events on LinkedIn. It's a great system because it's super easy. And all you have to do, just a couple of things. First of all, this session is being recorded, so you don't have to take copious notes. I will provide the recording after the session. And second of all, if you have any questions, just use the comment box that you see here on the page, just like you're posting a comment on LinkedIn. And that's the primary means that we can use to communicate. Okay, so just slip a comment in there. If you have any questions, I'll take questions throughout the event. And certainly at the end, we'll have time for Q&A. And also, I'll provide a Calendly link at the end if you have any particular questions. If you want to connect with me one-on-one after, I'd be more than happy to spend some time talking about this or anything else. Okay, so that's the system, and hopefully that takes care of some of the housekeeping. Just a little bit about myself. My name is Dario Priolo. My firm is called JK Research. I'm a solopreneur, sort of like an industry analyst. I consider myself like a junior version of Gartner. I publish a number of newsletters. One in particular is called Biopharma Commercial Strategies and Insights. I know a number of you here subscribe to it, so thank you very much. And if you don't subscribe, you can just go to my LinkedIn profile and you'll see an opportunity there to subscribe to it. I love writing and I love following this industry very closely. And when I write what I learn better and I provide value to my clients, and it's a win-win all the way around. So I'm a very active writer and content creator. My business really looks at two things. It's growth and exit strategies. So from a growth perspective, I work with my clients. Oftentimes they're CEOs and founders of companies. I help them with marketing, sales, product strategy, and more now with venture capital, especially on the biotech side. Then on the exit side, I'll do work in mergers and acquisitions, private equity, strategic buyers, also some internal succession planning for smaller companies. We look at different ways that startups, founder-owned companies can exit. So it's really the two of those. It's the growth and the exit. And virtually all of my experiences in these three areas: life sciences, enterprise software, and professional services. I've been at this now for about 30 years and have really developed, I think, a very deep expertise in these areas. And what's interesting is that a number of you here are actually service providers to the biopharma industry. So maybe you're consultants, maybe you're trainers, maybe you're software providers. So providing some sort of a combination of maybe it's a software and a service, or a service and other types of things. I'm really finding that, that's an area that I have some really almost specialized expertise, selling to pharma. So that's a big thing that I do with my clients. My clients who are selling into large pharma, high growth biotech, I really understand how those types of organizations make buying decisions. I've actually done some webinars on these that I'll share with you later. But that's a big part of the value that I bring, is how do you sell into those organizations? That's just a little bit about myself. But most importantly, now let's talk about the JP Morgan Healthcare Conference, which was a couple of weeks ago in San Francisco. 8,000 attendees. It's actually San Francisco's second largest trade show, Dreamforce being the largest, which I've gone through a number of times, and it's just ridiculously crazy. There are about 1,000 biopharma companies present, 350 or so investors, 500 presentations. So just a tremendous amount of information being exchanged. And what's great about this conference is that because it's held in the first 2 weeks of January, it's really a bellwether for the industry. It's really a way for the industry to come together to really get a sense of what are the important topics, what are things that are going to be top of mind as we go through the year. And it's just a really great way to kick things off. For those of you who don't know me, I'm actually from Canada originally. Haven't lived there for many, many years, but I grew up playing hockey. I'm an avid hockey fan. Wayne Gretzky was always one of my favorite hockey players. And he had this saying, skate to where the puck is going, not to where it's been. And I think that's really important here, and a really important sort of aspect of this webinar. We're going to talk about key findings from this JP Morgan webinar and, what's sort of topical in the industry right now. But as importantly, I'm going to provide you with some insight into what that means for your business. I do this quite a bit with my clients. So I published a report about a week and a half ago, shortly after the conference, which was a briefing for CEOs, critical takeaways from the JP Morgan conference. I know I distributed it to many of you, but if you don't have it, please scan this QR code and you can download the report or email me after. I'm happy to share it. But in that report, I highlight actually I have 6 key takeaways. I've since combined them into 5. But those key takeaways are around M&A activity, key therapeutic areas, AI and healthcare and digital health. Those are the 2 that I brought together. I thought there were enough similarities. I could just cover them here for the sense of timing. Venture capital and funding, and then obviously the Trump administration impact. So these were the big themes, the big sort of, topics that people were buzzing about at the conference. And I think really, really drivers, I think, of change and strategy that you need to be aware of. So what we'll do here over the next half hour or so, we'll certainly talk about the themes, but you can read about the themes in the report that I created. But most importantly are the strategic implications. Okay, so you as CEOs of oftentimes biopharma services companies, software companies, some maybe pharma or biotech as well. There are definitely some strategic implications based on the themes that we uncovered at the conference. And what I've tried to do is to organize them into 3 categories. So hopefully these are some really strong takeaways that you can be thinking about, ways that you can sort of take right from this webinar and start to apply them to your business. So those strategic implications are in areas of enhancing your capabilities, refining your market position, and building key relationships. So based on the themes on the left, there are some strategic implications for you and your business, and I've tried to hone them down into 3 categories that are executable for you. I've also created a resource on the right that I'll send you afterwards. I call it my CEO guide, strategic recommendations guide. So don't feel like you've got to copy everything down. Think about, obviously I'm an Eagles fan. I don't know if you saw that. I live in the Philadelphia suburbs. There's Nick Sirianni, and he's got his play sheet. So think of this as your play sheet. All right. So from the webinar, I've tried to synthesize a lot of the key findings for you to, whatever, start to think through yourself, think through with your team, how you might want to act on this. Because one thing for certain is that there is a tremendous amount of change happening, and you can view change as either a threat or you can view change as an opportunity. And when I work with my clients, I really try to help them think about change as an opportunity to unlock growth for their business. So let's start with the M&A outlook. And overall, the 2025 outlook for M&A is very positive. Strong financial conditions. I mean, the U.S. economy has been very resilient. It's continuing to grow. With the Trump administration, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, but certainly, it's been interesting to see the RFK Jr., sessions, but certainly there's an expectation that there will be a favorable regulatory environment. Regulation should fall, and also a big driver of this is interest rates. So, I mean, if the economy remains strong and if interest rates, whatever, maybe can drop a little bit, and if the regulatory environment improves, there's a very strong feeling that M&A will be strong. Coupled with that, if you think about the top 25 biopharma companies, this was a good takeaway from the conference. They have $1.3 trillion basically in dry powder. So whether that's a combination of cash and borrowing capacity, they have the means to go out and to make acquisitions. Again, improve balance sheets and favorable interest rates. But also what's really interesting is that in 2028, 2029, there's what's called the patent cliff. So a number of key drugs are coming off patent protection. For example, Keytruda, Opdivo, Enbrel. So what that means is that a lot of these pharma companies, I mean, they're looking to make acquisitions. They're looking to make strategic acquisitions because they're going to have to replace some of that pipeline. So, and what you see is that there's a move from these broad portfolio acquisitions really to targeted bolt-ons. So, again, much more sort of strategic, targeted, and we'll talk about the key therapeutic areas. But if you are, for example, running a small pharma or biotech company, I mean, this potentially is very good news for you. I mean, they're not necessarily looking to go out and make massive acquisitions, right? Two big companies coming together. It's more strategic. And again, final bullet point, focus on early stage assets in specific therapeutic areas, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. So just in terms of recommendations, we want to skate to where the puck is going. So expected to be a favorable M&A environment. So now, whether you're a biotech or pharma company or med device company, or whether you're a service provider, just kind of think through about what the strategic implications might be. So first of all, in terms of enhancing your capability, so whether, again, whether you want to be acquired, whether you want to make acquisitions, if you're in that position, I would strongly suggest you proactively develop your M&A strategy. I think for smaller businesses, especially, it can be so disruptive for example, like a private equity firm to come in and say, "Oh, we want to acquire you," or a pharma company to come in and say, "Hey, we want to make an acquisition." And of course, it's very flattering. This kind of comes in unsolicited and unexpected, but then you have to go through a whole host of activities, whatever, to do due diligence and the transaction itself. It's very, very distracting. And if you're not ready for it, it can really pull you off, your core activities, and can be very time consuming. So, just take some time now to really think about, are you a company that, do you want to be acquired? Do you want to make acquisitions? And if so, then that's great, but just get your ducks in a row. But if that's not really in your plans, then you have to really think through what would happen if you got approached, and be disciplined to, possibly say no, because you just know it's going to take you off of your focus. The other thing that I would suggest is assessing M&A risk in your key accounts. So for you service providers or software companies out there, what would happen if some of your top accounts got acquired, right? This is where I think really understanding your strategic accounts and your position in those accounts is so important, because what we see all the time is that, you have a lot of your eggs in one basket. Maybe you're doing a ton of work with one particular company, and then they get acquired, something happens, there's a disruption in that company, and next thing you know, your business is on hold, and then it's seriously disrupted if you're not ready. So I would really think through the M&A risk. Just understand and monitor key M&A trends in the industry. I think, as CEOs, it's just critical that you do that. And again, like especially for service providers, really think through how you help your clients through M&A, either pre or post M&A. Some of my largest clients ever have come as a result of some kind of a merger or acquisition. I had a client during COVID, early in COVID. It wasn't a very significant company, wasn't a great client, but they got acquired by the family office of a billionaire. And next thing I got pulled into the integration, and I worked with them for 4 years. It was an over $1 million account for me, all driven from that acquisition. So M&A can be a huge boon, or it can be a huge bust as well if you're not ready for it. So just in terms of refining your market position, again, just especially if you're a service provider, start to think about, your track record supporting successful M&A integrations. And one of the things that you may not realize is that sometimes when you get into work with a client and you're doing a lot of work, that may be the result of the fact that there was a merger or an acquisition. Okay, so sort of like take a step back and look at some of your best accounts, your largest producing accounts, and just get a sense of like what was happening in those accounts that led to them to need you. Were there situations maybe where they made an acquisition and somehow you got involved in the integration or the due diligence, and as a result of that, you whatever grew your business. Just think about that. M&A can be a huge opportunity for you, and it may not always be obvious how you've helped in those situations, but sometimes when you take a step back and take a deeper look, it's like, oh wow, there was a merger, and that's what really drove a lot of the activity that I was supporting. Run your market position. Think about thought leadership, right? Thought leadership on biopharma and M&A trends and the impact. So think about, if one of your clients were to go through a merger, like how would you help them, right? I mean, there's always ways that we can help as service providers. So for example, I've got a client that it produces laboratory software, right? And, the laboratory software industry, there's a whole bunch of legacy applications. And when we took a step back, it was really interesting how so much of his opportunity comes from labs merging. So there's an acquisition being made, and next thing you know, they've got these antiquated software systems, and now that's sort of like their time to, okay, we're going to bring two companies together. We know we have a lot of work from an integration perspective. So let's just throw it all out and put new software in place now, new state of the art software. And because of that, now what we want him to do is to really think through thought leadership, right? How can you educate the market around your capabilities and provoke the needs and the opportunities? Educate the market around, hey, when there's a merger, it's a good time for you to do this. Okay, and there are many reasons, but just think about how you play in that sort of dynamic. And then again, think about your capabilities, your product suite, your offering to support changes, whatever mergers, acquisitions, changes in ownership. There's probably a lot that you can do, but just take a step back and really think about it. Finally, growing strategic relationships. Again, this is so crucial, especially in your key accounts. If you had a key account that got acquired, what's your position? I mean, how are you going to survive in that account? It can be very, very threatening. So again, but if you have a strategy and a plan, then you can be proactive and you can prevent a lot of it. Especially, sometimes in the key accounts, you're maybe you're single threaded, right? Maybe you only have one relationship in that account or two relationships, and what happens in M&A, people leave, and then just relationships get disrupted. So just think about all that stuff. Again, you can just keep your finger on the pulse of pharma companies that are significant, that are going to have potentially significant M&A activity. Start to pursue those organizations. Start to build relationships with potential key players in those accounts that at some point whatever, maybe potential customers for you, and position your capabilities. Okay, so that's M&A. All right, so let's move on now to some of the key therapeutic areas. And again, like you can see them here. The big ones that were talked about were GLP-1 therapeutics, oncology, and precision medicine, and some of these emerging platforms. So GLP-1, again, weight loss, huge industry, $150 billion. I mean, it's a chronic issue, across certainly the US and a lot of the world now. And supposedly there's there's an effective way to treat them through these GLP-1s. What's happening now is that you're starting to see a combination of approaches. So one of the downfalls of GLP-1s is that apparently you can lose a lot of muscle mass in addition to losing fat. So they're trying to stem, the loss of muscle mass. There are also, other applications of these GLP-1 therapeutics in other areas. So again, just know that this is happening, and it's attracting a lot of attention and a lot of money. Oncology and precision medicine, again, very, very important areas, right, that are getting a lot of attention. Lots of investment is going into them. And these emerging platforms, RNA therapeutics, AI, we'll talk about AI, CRISPR advances in diabetes and cell therapy, so gene editing, and certainly, rising focus on cardiovascular and metabolic diseases. So again, just know that these are the therapeutic areas that, are garnering a lot of attention and a lot of investment. And again, like what you should be thinking about is there a way for you to play in them? So, for example, I think it's just incumbent upon all of us to, like just develop awareness and expertise in these growing areas, right? Like if you don't really, like if you don't have your finger on the pulse of them, it's a good time for you to, kind of increase your own education in those areas. But then determine how you can be relevant in the context of these trends. So, for example, from a market positioning standpoint, maybe you can position yourself as an enabler of faster time to market for some of these breakthrough therapies. I think maybe understanding the regulatory landscape for some of these novel platforms, showcasing thought leadership and emerging therapeutic trends and data-driven insights and expert perspectives. So again, when you start to talk about what you do, now you can talk about it generically, but you can also talk about it through the lens of these emerging therapeutic areas. And next thing you know, your level of relevance just increases so much more in the marketplace. It shows that, whatever, like, hey, like, we have this really innovative drug that we're bringing to market, and there's this company here that seems to know a little bit about it, and well, maybe we should talk to them because we know we're going to need that type of help. And then, of course, building key relationships, target biopharma companies with advanced, pipeline assets. So keeping your finger on the pulse of PDUFA and kind of how things are flowing through the regulatory pipeline. Again, like looking at organizations that have money and that have potential big launches coming, right? I mean, that's always a good thing to do. Demonstrate how you're relevant, and maybe you'll get a piece of that action, right? If they don't know who you are, and if they don't know that you can help them in some sort of area, then they're not going to consider you. But if you can start to position, who you are, what you do, start building relationships with the right people, then when the time comes, whatever, you just stand a much better chance of potentially landing business in those types of organizations. So again, it's always about building awareness and credibility with decision makers before the major development milestones take place. So this gets back to, I talk a lot about the really crucial need for CEOs and leaders to be building their networks. I talk a lot about the founder brand. We can talk about that, later offline. But it's so crucially important for you to be out there in the market, demonstrating your expertise, building awareness, building relationships at high levels. You have the ability, greater than anybody in your organization, to connect at the C level with venture capital, and at the investor level. It's important for you to do that. It will benefit you tremendously. Let's now talk about AI, and AI is a huge area. And this is an example of how I kind of like took the trend from JP Morgan. And I've been following, I was a very early adopter into the AI world. I've been at it now for a couple of years, but I just published a new newsletter called, the AI and Healthcare Monitor. I mean, there's so much happening. And what I want to do is I want to force myself to really keep my finger on the pulse of, again, like how the industry is evolving, right? And it can evolve from a couple of different perspectives. I mean, certainly from a drug discovery and development perspective, right? AI is accelerating target identification and validation. Machine learning is optimizing clinical trial design and recruitment. In fact, I have a new client now that what they do is they use AI in clinical trial, whatever design and delivery, and it helps whatever to just deliver smarter clinical trials. It's really exciting what they do. But also in the world of healthcare delivery and operations. So so you've got the drug discovery, now you've got the actual, healthcare delivery, all sorts of areas. For example, AI-enabled clinical documentation and decision support, AI analytics for staffing and resource allocation, remote monitoring and digital health integration, all sorts of really interesting things here where AI and advanced technology is working, with the patient, right, to help the patient get their treatment, get better treatment, get better faster, and deliver a better outcome for the provider, which is, again, like a win-win. And when that happens, generally the provider will get, whatever, potentially greater reimbursements from Medicare or other things. So again, just, really think about this. Let's go to the next slide here. We'll talk about, what this means for you. If you haven't already done so, okay, you personally build foundational understanding of AI applications in healthcare and drug development. So again, not to plug me, but whatever, subscribe to my newsletter, right? Or other publications that are covering this. This is definitely the future. In your own organization, like not just you, but everybody in your organization should really be learning about this. And again, like, whether it's real or not, Trump announced a $500 billion investment from a number of Oracle and SoftBank and, all these other players, Meta. This is not going away. So what I would encourage you to do is to, maybe create like an internal AI center of excellence with key stakeholders in your organization, right? Like get educated on this, because I can certainly say, even from my own perspective, running my own business, like AI has just saved me so much time and it's helped me make so much more money than I would have made and takes so much pain out of what I do. It is tremendous. Everybody should be trying to understand how they can use it to improve their business. It's incredible. So just stay on top of the AI developments in the industry. Second, from a market positioning perspective, again, it goes back to showcasing concrete plans for AI and integration in your service offerings. So think about the services you provide, and there are opportunities really to use AI to deliver those services better. Okay. Position yourself as a trusted advisor in your client's AI journey. So again, understanding how they're using AI. Maybe it's in a regulatory sense, and if you're a regulatory expert and if you have a point of view on how to use AI and stay compliant, there are all sorts of things that you can do. But just understand, how AI impacts your business, and understand how AI impacts your customer's business, and you'll see that there are a lot of opportunities to capitalize on that. And then, of course, share learnings from your own AI implementations. This gets back to your thought leadership and really, like, publishing and content development. Again, like, it's really interesting what's happening. We're in this, we're all creators, right? Or we all have the opportunity to be creators. And I mean, I do it because it just helps keep me on top of things. It helps, I feel like I'm more educated myself, and I can provide better services to my clients when I know what's going on in my world and in their world and in the industry. So just encourage everybody to jump on this, and not only just to read, but to take credit for it, right? I mean, you're going to put the time and effort into it. Well, take credit and tell the world about it, and show them that you're a forward-looking organization with your finger on the pulse of where things are going. Then, of course, in terms of building key relationships, so again, join AI focused industry consortiums and working groups. Build AI relationships with both AI vendors and AI pharma leaders, partner with clients on pilot programs and proofs of concept. So one of the things that I'm going to do as I build up my newsletter is I'm going to have an AI in healthcare conference later this year. So I just see so much demand for it, so much interest in it. There's so much innovation that's coming. The AI, whatever AI software companies, they want to tell their story, right? The people who are running organizations, whether it's pharma companies or hospitals and healthcare networks, they want to know how it can help them. So I think there's a win-win and a natural opportunity here. But again, my advice is to get in front of this. I mean, the train's left the station, but certainly it is certainly not too late at all. But get on top of it, and you will see rewards. Talk about venture capital. Again, the market outlook from JP Morgan was very positive. Total funding for VCs reached 23 billion, up 15% year over year. Strong liquidity conditions driving deal flow. Renewed IPO activity creating existing exit opportunities. So the IPO market has been dead, and there's certainly hope, especially for example with the new administration and fewer regulations, that will change. But it remains to be seen. AI digital health, again, just creating a lot of buzz. There's a lot of AI investment going into it. 30% of total healthcare funding. Biopharma AI sector is growing at 300% a year to 5.6 billion. Right. So again, this is like, I see those numbers and it's like, well, I'm a consultant. So it's like, hey, I want to position myself as an expert. I need to learn these things. I need to stay on top of it. If I'm not providing these insights to my client, I feel like I'm not doing them. I'm doing them a disservice, and I'm doing a disservice to myself. Investment stage dynamics, again, seed rounds dominating 40% of deals. Again, that's a bit of a challenge right now. So with AI, there's a potential for a lot of innovation, sort of like a bit of like the .com bubble back in the early 2000s, but not nearly to that extent. But I mean, AI just creates the ability to create software and applications so much easier and so much faster and with fewer people. In many cases, like, they don't need large rounds of funding, but what you're seeing is that there's a lot of competition, and so you have to demonstrate traction, and that's the challenging part, right? It's one thing to have a great idea and to use AI to help bring that idea to life, but selling into pharma and healthcare, I mean, it is a challenging market to sell into. These companies they're risk averse, it's regulated, and that's why I believe you see some of this gap. It's like, hey, we can generate some buzz to get a seed round, but then to get traction, to get to our next rounds if we need them, that's where the challenge really is. And I'm working with some companies today that are facing those. And again, we've made some tremendous strides in helping them to, you have to be excellent marketers, okay? And a lot of the things I'm talking to you about here are things that you need to think about doing in order to demonstrate your capability to at least get in the door. And then when you get in the door, then you have an opportunity to at least compete and provoke needs and change people's minds and get them to take a leap of faith with you. But it's very, very difficult to get in that door, but it can be done. So just in terms of enhancing your capabilities, again, target companies receiving some of these funding rounds. That's always useful to do. There are a number of databases out there that you can do that. Again, build scalable solutions for high growth and VC-backed organizations. So again, like if you're a service provider or a software company, you might want to think about that. I mean, I get asked about it all the time. There are ways that you can structure your fees so that, for example, maybe it's a little bit less upfront because they have cash flow concerns, but then you can take some of the upside on the back end if you're successful. So just to kind of think outside the box a little bit. Try to align. If you think about a founder of a company and think about they've got to face a VC, a board with VC backed funders on it, and they have to be showing whatever, like they have a business plan. They have to be showing how they're executing against that plan, and put yourself in their shoes, right? And if you can align your services and your fees with their business model and what they basically have to report back to their investors, then there's potential to, whatever, get in on the ground floor. Right now, not everyone wants to take that risk, or not everyone's able to, but just kind of be thinking about that. Again, developing the pricing models that are aligned with startup funding cycles. Again, getting back to refining your market position, demonstrate your experience supporting rapid growth companies. Again, like, you may not be positioning yourself like this today, but you're probably doing it in some ways. And just take a step back and really get a sense of, maybe how it's a little bit different, right? You've got an early stage company versus a mature company. What are ways that you can step in and help that early stage company get traction and grow, conserve cash, and maybe have, again, there's all sorts of things that you can do. But again, it's demonstrating that experience and then demonstrating the thought leadership, right? Be out there, through your publishing and your messaging, demonstrating and talking about how you can help scale these companies that are growing fast. That way, again, like, you don't want it to be a secret. The more these companies know that you have capabilities that align with their stage of maturity and growth, whatever, the more likely it is that they're going to consider you. Again, showing expertise in regulatory compliance for funded companies, all that's very helpful. And of course, again, building key relationships. So thinking about who's getting the funding, getting to know whatever key decision makers in those organizations. Oftentimes it's the CEO. Positioning yourself as a strategic partner who can help them, right? Very, very helpful. So again, just taking a step back and thinking about how you can be relevant given this change. And when you're relevant, then you stand an opportunity to benefit. And then finally is the Trump administration impact. And, whatever, I mean, I'm not going to make this at all political, but it's just very interesting to see, what's going to happen, right? There are all sorts of question marks. I think directionally, people have a sense that, well, theoretically, regulation should come down. Hopefully, if the economy is strong, interest rates should come down. It should be a favorable environment, and that's what came out of the JPM conference 2025. The outlook is favorable. We have a very pro-business administration, but things are going to change. The regulatory environment's going to change, right? Who knows what's going to happen, right? Again, with RFK Jr., if he gets confirmed, it's hard to say just how much will change and how quickly it will change, but it will change. So just keep your finger on the pulse of that. Impact on deal activity, again, increased confidence in large acquisitions, possible revival of stalled deals, right? I mean, if the conditions change, then whatever, things can change, right, pretty quickly. And just key policy areas to keep your on the finger of the pulse of. I mean, drug pricing reform, right? The Inflation Reduction Act. It'll be interesting. I mean, that's actually going into effect now, and it will be interesting to see, whatever, if pieces or parts of that get repealed, if it gets changed. Medicare, Medicaid programs and how they're going to change. Of course, there was a lot of discussion about that in the RFK Jr. confirmation discussions. Market access and other healthcare initiatives. Again, like, there's just a lot of change here that's on the horizon. So again, just in terms of recommendations, build adaptable compliance frameworks for shifting regulations. So just know that, if regulations change and that forces you to change how you deliver your product or service or solution, just be aware of that. Okay. Chances are it won't be business as usual. And the more agile and nimble you can be, the less disruption that you'll experience. Again, it just gets down to, creating scalable solutions for accelerated approvals, monitoring policy changes that affect client priorities. If you're not talking to your clients, especially your most important clients, about all of this, then you should absolutely be doing that, especially as CEOs. There's nothing better than a call from a CEO, if to a good customer, just to ask them, like, what is your outlook for the year, right? I mean, you should have account managers that are doing some of this stuff, but from my experience, a lot of that insight gets diluted, right? And maybe it gets rolled up into a report and whatnot. And my advice in when there's this much change happening, take the time, talk to your best customers, and really get a sense of, what's on their mind, right? How is this impacting them? How do they feel it's affecting them? And while you're there, I mean, you'll get all sorts of ideas around how you can potentially help them, manage through any potential disruption. So again, just in terms of market positioning, demonstrating expertise, navigating regulatory transitions. I mean, one thing is for certain is that there will be change. Positioning yourself as an advisor, business, sharing insight on emerging opportunities in the changing landscape. Also, helping your clients understand where the potential threats are. Right, because there's so much change happening. There will probably be situations where your clients are just simply unaware, or maybe they underappreciate, or they're not considering, how a change will impact them. And that's where you, as a trusted advisor and a thought leader, can really be helpful. Okay, help your client understand, how these changes are going to impact their business. They're experts in their business. You're experts in your business. They aren't necessarily experts in everything, right? So you should be bringing that level of insight and expertise to them, so that whatever you can help them, whatever, stay out of trouble and adapt to what's changing, and potentially, whatever, get yourself grow grow the business within the account, right? And really be seen as a trusted advisor. And again, this gets back to the key relationships. So important, so important. The big difference between selling, because I've worked in life sciences, I've worked in software, I've worked in professional services, and what's really interesting is that I view selling into pharma, biotech, and med device much more of a professional services sale. Okay, it is not a high volume. Like people, they'll read about these, sales and marketing gurus on LinkedIn, but the thing is, most of them are selling SaaS, and this is a different animal. I mean, this is a very different animal. You have to have trust. You have to have credibility. These companies are risk averse. You have to have relationships. Relationships still mean a tremendous amount, and I just really encourage you to take that to heart. Okay, get close to your best customers now. So with that, again, just want to recap that change drives opportunity. Okay, that is the key takeaway here. We're in a time of tremendous change. I walked through 5 aspects of where that change is happening, and you have opportunity here. If you can seize the change, if you can capitalize on the change, you will have opportunity. But if you don't, then that change will probably turn into a threat, and it could adversely impact your business. So anyway, with that, just want to, if anybody has any Q&A, that's fine. I'm happy to answer any questions. But what I would also encourage you to do, there's a QR code here. You can scan that and schedule whatever. Let's just schedule a call. I'd be happy to share more insight here, share how I'm helping some of my clients, kind of adapt in this, whatever, in this rapidly changing environment, getting some amazing results. And I mean, I'm very excited. I'm very bullish on this year, and it's like I said, it's a time of change, but there's a ton of opportunity on the horizon, especially in our industry. Okay, I mean, our industry is there's just so much opportunity, and what I love about it is that there's so much opportunity to help people get better. Right? It's not only building your business, but building your business and helping whatever the world, the country, people become healthier. Right? Healthier, happier, more productive. And that's what gets me out of bed in the morning. So with that, just want to thank everybody for coming. Thanks, Carrie. It was wonderful to have you on the call. You always love working with Carrie. Carrie is a client, and like I said, just feel free to reach out, and have a wonderful weekend. Okay, take care. Bye bye.